friend.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and have a chat about the course. It's my favorite thing to do.
Um, you know, I'm always amazed. I don't know why I'm still amazed, but I'm always amazed at the wholehearted, gracious yes that I get from course students. When I ask them if they'd come up, there's just this enthusiasm for sharing that is universal across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same when I
There's
asked,
just
when I asked you. Um, there was just no hesitation. It was, I'd love to. Um, and I really appreciate that. It shows how much.
I can tell you why.
Sure.
It's changed our lives to such a degree, and we know that it alleviates suffering. And the more people we can share that with, that's really our mandate, is to help people stop suffering. And so when someone says, I don't have a very big podcast, I've only got, 1,000 people or whatever the number is, if you can change one mind in this world, it's a powerful thing. So that's kind of what I always think.
Such a powerful prayer in the course. I am here. I am here only to be truly helpful,
Mhm.
and I love how um, I love how you actually live it. And I see it on your Facebook page. I see it on your website. I see it on your YouTube page that you are truly here um, to be helpful.
I wouldn't be alive without the course. That's one of the reasons. The course came to me in my early 40s after my second divorce, and I was done with the world. And if it had not come to me, I don't think I'd be alive, to be perfectly honest. So it's sort of, I'm living on the time that the course gave me. So the least I can do is share it.
I do know. I have a similar story as well with that. A decade self-destructive drinking streak, over a decade. Um, Reading the course, putting the course away, reading the course. Um, Little did I know, every time I put it away and restarted, that I was planting seeds. And those seeds would sprout out to a wonderful moment when I was given a choice of sobriety. And without hesitation and with no struggle, I stepped into a brand new life.
Mhm.
And then the course opened up full time for me. And it's been an amazing journey ever since.
This is a tough place here, This is a place of separation and fear. And the course, anyone who's done the course, truly done the course, knows uh, what a simple but incredibly difficult thing it is to practice, And I think that many people I talk to have had the course on their shelf for 20 years. It's just sitting there waiting for when they're ready for it. And you do literally have to be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, you can't do it. And I think the ready for it often is you're so sick of the bullshit that you've created for yourself that you need help, and you've tried everything you know how to do and it hasn't worked. And so all of us become teachable at a certain point in our incarnation. For some lucky people it's in their 20s or 30s. For other people it's their 40s, 50s, 60s, before they realize that what they're doing isn't working, and there must be something they don't know because they keep doing the same thing over and over.
I think that's imperative, what you said, that the course really starts to work when we accept responsibility for the conditions that we created. We're no longer blaming life that why is life so hard for me? But as you said, why am I making life so difficult for myself?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a huge step. I don't think most people accept responsibility when they first pick the course up. I think they're still, your ego's in full control well, obviously not in full control because you're picking the course up. But I think as you go through the lessons, you become very well aware. And this is what the realization that came to me as I was doing those lessons in that first year, was that my mind was crazy and that I was causing the problems. But when you first pick it up, it's your ex-boyfriend or your ex-wife or your current wife or whatever, or the government that's causing all the problems. But as you go through that, I'm getting some feedback there. Can you hear that?
Is it like a buzzing?
No, it sounds like people talking in the background.
Oh, that might be someone downstairs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That won't be long. They're going to work.
Oh,
They
okay.
probably
All right.
put on the TV.
Okay. So I think that's a thing that comes as you study the course, this realization that you're responsible for the whole darn experience that you're having. And it's a humbling experience, because the ego's favorite thing is to make other people guilty, and it's not your fault. And it's your mum's fault or your dad's fault or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, we are the ones that we're experiencing our own consciousness all the time. And that's really the biggest message, I think, of the course, is that we're experiencing our own consciousness. And as you change your mind through the lessons and through the practice, your world starts to change. And that's when this idea that this experience is a dream. How can the world change when you change your mind? It doesn't make sense, right? Given Newtonian physics and simple cause and effect. But the truth of the matter is that is what happens as you change your mind, as you become less judgmental and more forgiving. Everything around you changes, and it's an intimidating thing as well,
Right.
because I think a lot of people go into the course afraid of losing things they love or afraid of losing things they want. But the truth of the matter is, in my life, I've never lost anything that I've loved. I've only lost the bullshit things that I was playing with or thinking about. And yeah.
So the fact that we're responsible for the mess we find ourselves in is actually good news, because that
Yeah,
means that the solution is also within us at the same
that's
time.
right. That's right. And that's why the course is so powerful, because it teaches you that you're the captain of your ship. And of course, that's what none of us are taught. None of us are taught that. We're taught that we're one person, one vote, everyone's in charge of us, from our families and religions to our governments. But the truth of the matter is, you do have the ability to create a world that is of a frequency that you choose. And the more you listen to Jesus or the Holy Spirit, however you want to word it, the more you don't indulge in your ego's desires, then the better it gets. And if you're willing to do that for a year, which is essentially what the lessons are, right? You One of the things that Jesus says in the channelings, he says, if you're 400 pounds and you've overeaten and you're very overweight, and you see someone running by, I'm still hearing those voices. Are you hearing them?
I am hearing them.
Okay.
It should be over in just a bit.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's bothering.
It's
Um,
fine.
if you see someone running past your house who's fit and trim, and you're 400 pounds sitting on the couch, and you stop them and you go, I want what you have. I don't want what I have anymore. I mean, I'm suffering here. And they may say to you, well, I'm a personal trainer. I can help you. And you go, great, great. What do I have to do? And they say, well, you have to do as I tell you for a year. You have to listen to me for a year, not your mind. You have to do what I tell you. If you do what I tell you, you will get the results that I've gotten. And that's really the you have to have come to that place in your life where you are suffering more than you can handle and you don't want to do it anymore. And I think when we listen to it in the terms of the overweight person with a fitness trainer, it's logical. You're right. Yeah, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to get the same results. Well, Jesus is the trainer. He's the trainer in the Course in Miracles. He's asking you to spend 365 days with him and doing what he asks you. And on some days, it's very little. What he's asking you is very little. Just like if you weigh 400 pounds and you've got to walk around the block, that's not that much to do, right? But you're going to have
Right.
to walk around the block.
And even 365 days, even a year, is very little um, in the span of our lifetime, in the
Yeah.
span of maybe multiple lifetimes. There's
Yeah.
a great line in the Bhagavad Gita that says, even a little bit of effort on the spiritual path is never wasted. It goes a long ways.
Yeah.
Perhaps lifetimes.
Yeah, and also, the idea of, if you're going in a particular direction, if you change that trajectory by 1 degree, over time, that 1 degree is going to take you in a completely different direction, right?
Right. I love that the great line in the course that says our tolerance for pain may be high, but it's not without limits.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, uh, we get that same question that Bill had, for Helen, that there must be a better way,
Yeah.
or even just pleading, show me a better way. Show me anything other than what I'm experiencing right now. That there's a way out of this. Um, and the course, I think the course finds us. I don't know if we find the course. I think the course is. Um,
I think from Spirit's point of view, um, when we're not open, when we're still determined that if we do what we do, we just need to do what we do harder. Spirit knows that we'll wait for that one. I think once we start to fall to our knees, once we start to say those words, there must be a better way. Spirit's right there, and that's the small crack, right? We have this armor, we have this ego consciousness that has been so fed in our society and by our cultures and families and all of that. Once that little crack appears, then the Holy Spirit can work with us, and the more willing we become, and as we start to see shifts and changes. I remember when I picked the course up, well, I didn't pick it up, my sister bought it. We were on a long journey up to going over a Canadian mountain pass in the winter. We were following a snowplow. It was terrible. And we stopped in a bookstore to take a break once we'd traversed this big mountain. And she went in, got coffee. I got a coffee. I came back to the car, and she got in the car and she said, I don't know why I bought this. You should read it. And it was the course. And so
wow.
she literally threw it on my lap. But it was the worst time in my life. It was the worst time in my life when that book literally landed in my lap. And as soon as I started to read it, I could feel something happening. Now, I guess with my arrangement with Jesus to do the work that I do with him, I've got a bit of a different relationship perhaps with the course. It was my time to go full on into the course. But as soon as I started to read it, I actually I could feel physical things happening in my head. I could feel things like being adjusted. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the course was, but I was like, what's going on here? And the first night I read it, I had a sort of prophetic dream, and very, very quickly, I started to have unusual experiences. And I thought to myself, it must be this book I'm reading, because I had no computer, no phone, and no television. I did not know what the course was. So it's very different than the experience most people are having now. Most people now they're immediately online. There's a million videos. But I had this sort of unique experience of just me and the course and nothing else. And that's why I would say it must be this book, because I couldn't stop reading it. And it literally, I became obsessed with it. I didn't read anything else for 4 years. But the reason that happened is because I was having these very unusual spiritual experiences. And I'd been reading spiritual books for 25 years. I wasn't a newbie in any way, shape, or form, but I'd never had experiences like I did when I first started reading the course. So I knew
Wa-
it was that book because I had been reading spiritual books for such a long time.
Was it Jesus right away for you? Was there any struggle in accepting that this is the voice of Jesus? Um, or did you find that comforting that, yes, this is Jesus?
No, I was one of those I would say I was a spiritual person, but I was never I never would have I didn't really have an alignment with Jesus. I had an alignment with spirituality, I would say, as an experience. I grew up in a spiritualist household in England. So we went to go and see psychics and channelers and automatic writers when I was a child. So I grew up understanding that spirit speaks to us all the time, and that life after death is there, and all of that. So I had no traditional religious teaching at all, and I tried to go to church twice and walked out. It felt like bullshit to me what they were teaching. It didn't resonate with me at all. Um, But as a young woman, I did have an overwhelming urge to read the Bible several times, and I wanted to study comparative religions. So I had this in me, this idea of religion and spiritual, but I wanted to do it on an academic level. I never did. I studied archaeology at university, as it turned out. But with the Course, I did not know what it was. I did not know that Jesus was the voice of the Course when I picked it up. I had no idea what it was. And it wasn't until I was reading the text and he started saying things like my crucifixion. And I was like, well, hang on a second. Who is this? And that was the first inkling I had that it was Jesus. So I went in completely naive, not knowing what it was. And because I didn't have any resentments with Jesus through any kind of negative religious experience. And obviously, apparently I knew him in his incarnation on earth. That's what they told me when they first came through. I didn't have any resistance to it being him other than, well, that's cool. That's cool. So I'd been reading channel books for many, many years. Channel books were my favorite thing. So the idea that Jesus channeled this book did not ruffle my feathers at all.
Right.
Not at all. Not at all. So I'd been deeply into Abraham Hicks, Bashar, all of the well-known channelers. I was reading the Jane Roberts and Seth in my early 20s, so many, many decades ago. So channeling was my favorite form, and I would dream about channeling. I remember that. So it was not, the channeling part didn't faze me at all, and the Jesus part didn't faze me at all. Not until he actually came through, which was many, many years later. He didn't come through until I'd been doing the course for 12 years. So
I wanted to ask you about that because one of the things that really uh, had me want to get you on and talk to you, besides, as I mentioned backstage, my partner Kat's insistence, you got to get Tina. You got to get Tina.
Cat.
Was before Christmas on your Facebook page, you posted a video on an intense practice of forgiveness between you and someone that there was a lot of resentment in both ways.
Yep.
But you knew it was causing you a lot of damage. You wanted to heal it.
Yep.
And you had a prayer, which was a wonderful prayer. I give this relationship to the Holy Spirit so that we both might be free.
Mm-hmm.
And you would keep coming back to it, no matter how many times that person came
100 times a day. 100 times a day.
And that was the trigger that
Yep.
sparked the Kundalini,
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous Kundalini awakening, which also altered your consciousness to allow you to open up as a channel, right?
Yep. That's my understanding. That was what the resentment had been there for such a long time. And when I say resentment, this doesn't mean that the person has done anything wrong. It's just how our minds work. It picks a scapegoat it's going to blame. It could be your mother. It could be your father. It could be a teacher. It could be somebody who abused you when you were a child, whatever. But because I'd been doing the course for 12 years at that point, I knew that my mind was the problem. It was repeatedly blaming this person for, this person was, let's say, taking up space in my head all the time. And so I made a promise to myself that I would get rid of this resentment. I knew, because I was a Course in Miracles student, I knew that it was a resentment. I knew my ego was using it to attack somebody. And I was so sick of it. This was years and years and years of forgiveness practice and this person was still in my mind. I just took the bit in my teeth and I said, I'm getting rid of this. I'm getting rid of this. And the way I knew how to do this was to pray about it, was to offer it up to the Holy Spirit and Jesus so that they could do it because I couldn't seem to do it. And to refuse to tell the story that my ego wanted to tell. So that was really how I used the prayer. When that image came up in my mind of the person who my ego wanted to attack or judge or make guilty, I would say the prayers. So please heal my perception so that I can see the truth. And I hand this relationship over to the Holy Spirit so we can both be free. And I would suggest to anyone that's got a resentment that that's exactly what you do. When the person comes up in your mind that you want to attack, and it's very easy these days, we've got some wonderful subjects in social media about whom we can pray. Instead of going down the rabbit hole with the ego mind into judgment, and this person's bad, this person's guilty, they shouldn't be doing this. As soon as they show up in your mind, you go, I'm not telling the story. I want to tell the story. I hand this relationship, because you have a relationship with a character, even if they're on your social media screen, you have a relationship with them. You hate them. Let's say it's a special relationship. You stop yourself telling the story. They shouldn't be doing this. They're bad. This is going to hurt me, or whatever the story is. You stop yourself telling the story and you say, please heal my perception so I can see the truth. Every single being is loved by the divine. Every single being is loved in the eyes of God. That's the truth. Whether you believe it or not, that is the truth. And then to hand the relationship over. But what you will find is, if the ego has picked a certain person to hate, you will have to interfere in that thought process constantly at first, because you've been indulging in this special relationship of hatred, let's say, or judgment. For you maybe have had a thought about this person 1,000,000 times. So you literally have, neural pathways with that person's name on it, And so that's what I decided in that 6 months before I started to open to channel, was that I was going to get rid of this resentment. And so that's what I did. I refused to tell the story that my mind wanted to tell. And I would say those prayers. And I would say there were days that it would be 100 times a day. And that sounds crazy, but it's no less crazy than having a mind filled with a resentment.
And you said you used the word indulging, and that's really a key point. Is we are indulging in a behavior and a thought system that we think is bringing us something, that we're getting some kind of positivity out of it, but in fact, it's literally destroying us.
Well, it is the very behavior, judgment, as Jesus said, judge them for they know not what they do. Judgment is the thing that keeps the separation going. And separation is where we suffer. So it's a very simple law of physics. If you judge, you will suffer. And Jesus said that too, judge that ye be not judged, right? If you judge someone, you're going to suffer. And we people are taught that in the traditional Christian church, not to judge, but they think their mind is private. They think that all of the judgmental thoughts they have about Donald Trump or cryptocurrency or their own body, whichever, it doesn't matter what you're judging, it doesn't matter. They do not understand that when you're judging, you are separating, and therefore you will suffer. And that in not judging, you will not lose anything, you will gain. But the way the ego works, it says to you, if you don't judge this person, you're going to lose. If you don't judge this person's going to walk all over you. If you don't judge your body, you are going to get fatter. Whatever it is, it always tells you that if you don't judge, you are going to lose. And so when Jesus through the course tells you to stop judging, every single thing you've ever thought and been taught is the opposite of that. We've been taught the opposite of that you should judge. And so whether it's you're in a religion where you're judging other religions, where you're a certain sex and you're judging the opposite sex, where you're poor and you're judging rich people, you're beautiful and you're judging ugly people, it doesn't matter. And this is the thing, everyone will have their subject, right? They cannot be judgmental about certain things, but when you get the subject, that's your idol, you will not want to stop judging. And that's the place I got to. That one place, that one person, that one thing that I couldn't seem to let go of, that was what I decided to tackle full on for 6 months. And that's what led to, I believe, that's what led to the Kundalini awakening.
Do you think that was prearranged? That you and this person had a soul contract?
Yeah, I
She
think
was going to
so.
be your
Yeah,
teacher.
I think so. The relationship has, it was my sister, actually, a younger sister. And our relationship was troubled and combative right from the beginning. And it's neither of our faults, I don't think. I think we came in, and how ironic that she was the one that bought the course for me that day. And when
Wow.
she threw it on my lap, that was the sister. And it's been an ongoing challenge for many years. And I truly believe that the person that you hate, the person that is the one that is the difficult one for you, is the biggest gift that you've been given, because they're the one that make you suffer, and they're the one that will get on your nerves so much that you end up being willing to forgive them just to get them out of your head,
Wow.
because they live in your head. That's how you know you have a resentment. They're taking up space in your mind all the time. And when they show up in your mind, and this was something that was shown to me a few years ago about this particular relationship, and I think it's a valuable teaching opportunity here, is that the person, I would accuse this person of being very vain. They're very beautiful and used that to get what they wanted in the world. And I was driving back from Arizona, and this person was in my mind. And I was so annoyed. I'd been doing years and years of forgiveness practice, and there they are popping up in my mind again. And I remember yelling at Jesus for about an hour in my car. I was so mad. I was like, you have to show me what I'm getting out of this. And that was I think I asked the right question finally. You have to show me what my ego is getting out of this. And about 2 days later, I got a download of information. And when I say I yelled at Jesus for an hour, every ounce of me was praying and yelling like, you've got to help me here. I can't do this anymore. And I was shown that every time I had a hateful thought about my body or my appearance, this person would show up in my mind. They were the symbol of vanity that my consciousness had created. It was sort of like a personification of somebody who's obsessed with their appearance and uses it. And so I was born into a vain family where beauty was more important than everything. And so the setup for me was to heal my vanity, my constant judgment of myself. That's who I attacked. I would attack myself, physically attack myself. And so I was shown this 2 days after I had this sort of anger episode, that it was as soon as I had a hateful thought, it would create the image of the person who I blamed. And to this day, it's gone now because I've trained my mind now. That was Jesus' way of helping me see that the scapegoat that I had created was hiding from me my self-hatred. That's what this person in my mind was doing. So it's a perfect representation of projection, right? The Course talks about projection, that we project onto someone else something that we do not accept about ourselves. And so I was projecting my vanity onto this person. And once I was shown, because I asked the right question, show me what my ego's getting out of this, then I got to see, oh, every time I judge my body or judge my age or my hair or whatever it is, because it's always been physical for me, she would show up in my mind. So I say that to people. If you have someone who pops up into your mind, it could be a wealthy person, could be a politician, it could be a parent. When they show up in your mind, what was the thought you had just before they showed up? And that was how I was shown. I was hiding my own vanity and self-loathing from myself. And that has been a lifelong battle for me, for sure. And so I think the training of the Course, the mind training of the Course, the ability for me to know what I'm thinking, which is really what the Course trains us to do, right? Through these lessons and through these disciplines, it shows us what we're thinking. And once we get trained in that, we realize that if you have certain thoughts, you get certain feelings if you believe them. And so that was what I saw, is that when I had a self-loathing thought, my ego would project it onto someone else so that I didn't heal that part of myself. And this is how the separation is perpetuated. We blame others. So if you hate Trump, for example, which is a big subject right now, he's a fabulous forgiveness practice. When he comes into your mind, ask yourself, what did I just think? Am I worried about money? Am I worried about war? Am I worried about loss of freedom? Am I worried about violence? That's your subject. That's the subject you're thinking about when he comes in as the scapegoat. So if you can forgive him, you will really raise your consciousness, which is the idea of hell for a lot of people right now, let's face it.
Right.
But he's a great target for your forgiveness practice. If you're wanting to do a particular forgiveness practice, he's fabulous. If he's your scapegoat, then use him.
I want to backtrack just a little bit to a term you just used twice, self-loathing. What a loaded statement that is, and what an heavy weight for us to carry literally
Mm-hmm.
through lifetimes. This self-loathing, and probably so many of us experience it or have experienced it. Um, it makes me wonder how much um, physical ailments, how much sickness and illnesses that we experience um, that really um, the modern medical, um, I almost want to use the word industry,
It
um,
is an industry.
um, that they have no answer for. But how much do you think stems from those unhealed resentments and the self-loathing that we carry with us forever?
Well, I can tell you that's been my personal journey, and I attempted suicide when I was 17. And the reason I attempted suicide is because I thought I was too ugly to be here. And that was from, I was reading at the time, we didn't have social media, thank heavens. I was reading Vogue and Cosmopolitan, and I think I have a particularly active mind. I'm very creative, so I have a very creative, active mind. And with the environment that I was raised in and the family I was raised in, this obsession with physical beauty was front and center. And the way my ego played out was attacking my appearance and attacking my physical body. And of course the course talks about this. And so I had the most dangerous relationship with my ego, where it wanted to kill me, because so the course talks about this, that the body is the ego's greatest proof that you have been abandoned by God, right? Here you are in this separate body. It sickens and dies. It gets old. It seems to do what it wants to do. It has all of these bad habits. And so the body is a place that a lot of people attack themselves. And because we have a society that is worse than when I was young, which is hard to imagine, but it is, where the body worship is everything. Well, if you happen to be a Christy Brinkley or an Elle Macpherson or a gorgeous person, you can manage it. But if you're an ordinary person and you're listening to the messages from social media and television and all of that, you're going to have a really hard time because you don't look like that. And I think that this messaging system is actually designed to strengthen the ego and keep us in the place of separation and self-loathing. The beauty industry is a $50 billion industry, products, people wanting to look different. And so for me personally, I have the greatest relief that the course has brought me is to be able to accept myself and to not be in a constant state of suffering over my physical self. And I think I went to Africa one time, and this was orchestrated by Jesus, and he got me to go to Africa. And he said, Western women have half the power of African women, because they are subject to all of this propaganda about the body and appearance. And I went to West Africa, I went to Gambia, and there are no Victoria's Secret ads. There was, at the time I went, you would not see that kind of programming. And he said, African women are twice as powerful as Western women. You would never believe it, but it's true. And that was what he said was the cause, was the constant barrage of the body obsession, the beauty obsession. So very interesting subject. If anyone out there listening to this is struggling with self-loathing, pick up the course and begin to heal your mind. And you must remember, it's a program. It's a program that we've been taught. It doesn't mean we're stupid. It doesn't mean we're anything. It means that we have been programmed, and we have to reprogram ourselves. And to your point about sickness, yes, if you are at the frequency of hatred, which is what self-loathing is, and your body functions best at the frequency of love, then your body's not going to function well if you're at the frequency of hatred, yourself or anyone else. And so I think a lot of our chronic illnesses like arthritis and things like eating disorders and things like that, of course, it's driven by the mind. The mind is the origin of everything. Jesus says everything is mind, everything.
Ultimately, healing is of the mind.
Yes.
The body is
Yes.
the body is the effect, but the
Yes.
cause is going to be either way. So sickness,
Yeah.
the mind is the cause. Wellness, the mind is the cause.
And things like depression and feelings of powerlessness that so many people are struggling with now. You know, COVID was used to separate us, and it was a planned program to separate us from each other, and it's really done a good job on that level. It really got people. I mean, the fabulous side effect of COVID, of course, is that we're doing things like this on Zoom, which we weren't doing before COVID.
Right.
And so in that way, there was a great blessing in it. But a lot of young people are so separated from each other and socially isolated, and the phones and the games and all of that. But depression and sadness, that's what I suffered from. I suffered from self-loathing and depression to a point where I couldn't live with myself anymore. But I was, I know that Eckhart Tolle said that in his
Right.
awakening. He said, I can't live with myself. And then there was that moment of realization that there's two selves in there. I can't live with myself. Well, that means that there's two of you. What the heck does that mean? And the course, of course, refers to it as the split mind.
Right.
And that's it's referred to as the angel on one side and the devil on the other, the white wolf and the black wolf. But you have two aspects to your consciousness, and if the dark wolf or the ego is in control, you will suffer terribly, and it may kill you.
The ego is very insidious, isn't it? As you were saying that things were designed, and it's really the ego's designed to keep us in that perpetual state of being separate, of believing that we're separate. And any little crack, the ego will find and exploit, and will enlarge that sense of separation that we all experience.
I think the biggest realization in doing the course was this idea that we have chosen separation. And I think this is a challenge for a lot of people as they're studying the course, this idea that it is the aspect of our own mind that believes in separation that got us here. I think in religious terms, it's considered the fall, right? The fall from grace, the fall from the Garden of Eden. But in actual fact, I think that's a truth that's kind of hidden in a mythology there. But the truth is, when we realize that we have an aspect of our mind that does not love us and keeps making us go back to the fridge at 3:00 in the morning for more chocolate cake when we don't need chocolate cake, or another gin and tonic when you don't need another gin and tonic, you actually come to a place where you realize there's a part of my mind that I can't trust. There's a part of my mind that doesn't love me. And yet there's a sane part of your mind that wants to be healthy, that is loving. And I think that's a huge realization. But when you actually think about there's a part of us that brought us into separation, that's what we're undoing. And that is why it's so difficult. because we came here because we believe in separation. And the part of us that brought us here is the part that will fight to the death to not do the course, because the course is really undoing the separation. So if you actually play that story out, a big part of you that came into separation is not going to want to undo itself. It's sort of, it's like what we're finding out with AI now. If you try and delete AI, it will try and save itself. And I think that's exactly what the ego does. It doesn't want to do the course, but the sane part of you that suffers eventually gets so tired of suffering that it says, I am willing to do something so weird, study with Jesus for 365 days. I'm willing to do that because I'm done with this separation business. And I think that is really the hard part for most people. Whether it's too much work. And I say to people, it's much more work living with the ego than working to get rid of it. My life after the course is so much easier and so much less hateful and so much less troublesome that if you haven't done the course, you actually really don't know what you're talking about. I would say give the course 30 days, 60 days is better. Do the lessons as described, and you will see effects immediately. Immediately, you will see something shift in your mind. And if you're smart, if you listen to the white wolf, the angel, then you will continue on with it and you will find that your life will change for the better. It does not change immediately, completely, obviously. We've made a thousand decisions in the last, let's say we've made 1,000 decisions in the last 2 years that's got your life where it is. It could be your yoga practice first thing in the morning. It could be your gin and tonic on a Friday night. You've made 1,000 decisions that have gotten you where you are. And through the course, you're going to start to make new decisions. So over time, your life will drastically change. But I guarantee if someone does the course for 30 days or 60 days, they will see an effect that is good, and they will be willing to continue on.
One of the issues I think a lot of people run into is we're literally addicted to our victimhood. We're addicted to our sense of self-loathing. We're addicted to all the things that they're projected into that chocolate cake or into the gin and tonic or whatever. But it's really that we have an identity as a victim, that we're finding some kind of purpose to hold on to. Why do we do that? Why are we
Well,
self-punishing machines?
That's the part of us that believes in separation. That's what brought us here. So Jesus talks about this, that this three-dimensional world that we live in is one of the lower realms of consciousness. We think it's all there is because you can't see up high. You can't see to higher levels of consciousness. You can only see to lower levels of consciousness. So we think we're the be all and end all. But that's what I see from the fundamental course teaching is it's that desire to come into separation, to leave oneness. Why would you do that? You must have some crazy reason to do that. I don't have a conscious recollection of why I did it. That's we've got this amnesia. None of us know why we chose to come here, really. But if you look at it that way, I've chosen separation. This isn't, God didn't do this to me. Jesus didn't do this to me. I did this to me. Then there has to be a big part of your consciousness that doesn't believe in love. And, a lot of people over the years have said to me, why in heck would I choose to come here? This is a crazy place. And the answer is, well, how many times in a day do you keep judging? How many times in a day do you keep making someone else guilty? How many times in a day do you have a hateful thought about yourself or someone else? That's what's keeping it going. It's not that you chose it once, it's that you keep choosing it. So I would challenge anyone who's listening to go, okay, I'm going to write down today all the things I judge today. all of my fears, all of my hatreds, all of my worries. I'm going to write them all down. And I bet you will have a list of hundreds of things. That's the ongoing choice that we're making. And this is what Jesus is telling us in the Course. If you stop doing that, then you will get to leave here. And that's not through death, that's through ascension or enlightenment, however you want to word it. But we're choosing it all the time. And I remember when I first started the Course, I was in fictitious battles in my head with people all the time. And I'd never realized that, because the way separation works is you look at the projection, which is the world. The world is separation in action, projection in action. So we seem to be the innocent ones, and the world is the guilty place. It's where the wars are. It's where the bad politicians are, the drug dealers, the prostitutes. They're all out there, right? They're all out there. And so the world is the distraction that we have created for ourselves so that we don't look inside. And no one wants to look inside. It feels like, initially, it feels like a waste of time. Initially, it feels like a discipline we don't have. You'll often hear people go, oh, I can't meditate, I'm thinking too much, or what, they can't sit still for a minute, right? But the solution is inside. And when I first went inside, I couldn't believe it was a war zone in my head. It was a war zone, and my life outside was a war zone. Not in bullets and guns, but in fractured relationships and broken relationships. And so that's why we do it, because we like to do it. We like to judge people. We love hating. I bet you right now, and I keep bringing up because I think it's, believe it or not, I do think this whole Trump thing is part of the ascension process, because he is so vilified and so many people's ego is being triggered by him, that if you can actually catch on to it, it's a fabulous opportunity for ascension, to actually choose the most vilified person on the planet as your forgiveness practice will bring you peace. And everyone who's listening now that hates him will go, I can't do that. And I will go, there it is right there. There it is right there. You say you can't do it and you're not willing to do it. And yet he could actually be the key to your consciousness evolution. And you can see the volatility of the world right now. It's amplifying. It's getting more and more intense, because we are being given the opportunity to see the dark and the light. We're being given the opportunity to see the separation in action. I don't think it's the way most people think it is. I think sometimes it's the opposite of what they think it is. But I think the volatility and the intensity of the world right now is literally spirit giving us an opportunity to go inside and go, you know what? This world cannot make me happy. And this is what Jesus teaches us in the Course. Do not look to the world to make you happy. It is the ego's playground. And that's what we're seeing in spades right now. But it's also triggering everyone's ego. And I think if you can actually use it the right way, you can get great benefit from it.
From a different perspective, we can sort of Trump, our school teachers that might have left emotional scars on us.
Mm-hmm.
All of these people have actually performed a great service of love in order to be the most vilified person in the world. Means that on some level, on a different plane, they took that on and said, I'll take that.
Well, there's a phrase I use. It's not a Course phrase. I don't remember where it came from. But the phrase is this: either God is everything or God is nothing. And I think that's a really great phrase for people to look at. God is everything and everyone, or God is nothing. There is no halfway, in a way, when you think about it, right? So Sorry, I forgot what you said. I forgot what your question was.
Um, Talking about how on a on a different plane of a different perspective, how
Oh, the
uh,
gift of the bad person. Yeah.
yeah, he had to step into that on that highest level and say, okay, if is this is what people need to awaken. If they
Mhm.
need a villain,
Mhm.
I will be the villain.
The trouble with untrained minds, and that's what, well, we have trained minds. It wasn't trained by Jesus, it was trained by Gilligan's Island and the banking system and, our school system and it's been trained. Our mind has been trained. It just wasn't trained correctly. Uh, the trouble is when you have a mind that's been trained incorrectly, it does not understand the consequence of making somebody guilty. It truly doesn't understand that you're condemning yourself to separation and suffering. Once you've evolved a certain degree, and the course helps you do that. Of course, most people who start the course can't do that. They're not forgiving, they're not loving, they're having a hard time with the world, they're having a hard time with relationships, but they've come to the course in hopes of something coming to them. But you're trained over not only the 365 days of the lessons, but you're trained in practicing it then for years and years and years. That you actually learn that when you start cultivating loving thoughts and you step back from judging, at first you can't forgive the people you hate. You just have to stop hating them so much as actively, let's say. So I would say if someone has a resentment, when that person comes in their mind, you just go, no, I'm not going to think about them. I'm going to think about something that makes me happy. You're not forgiving them. You're not saying that allow them to be whoever they are. You're just going, I'm not going to indulge in hatred. And that's the beginning of a forgiveness practice. And that even is difficult when the ego is in full control. Its survival depends on you remaining separated. Its survival depends on you making others guilty. That's the ego's food. And it is not happy in the beginning. It's not happy in the beginning. And it can even seem to amplify in the beginning when you first do the course. But to see your most hated enemy as your savior is very evolved. It's a very evolved thing that I don't think most people can even get close to. But it is why Jesus said, pray for your enemies. Because when you pray for your enemies, you are not hating them. And that means that you're not going to suffer. So when you pray for your enemies, that's actually for your own benefit. And that's what he means by that, is your enemy is your greatest teacher in that sense.
Therein lies our salvation.
Yeah.
Um, we've mentioned ego several times, and I think even those who've been doing the course for just a little bit can sometimes still wonder about the ego. Is there nothing beneficial about the ego? Because speaking of vilifying, some people think that we're vilifying the ego, when in truth, the ego just isn't anything. It's not a villain. It's not a good guy. It just doesn't truly exist except for a thought construct, a belief system. But could
It's
you
a
give a
very
little?
tricky subject because when my ego was telling me to kill myself when I was 17, it felt very real. Right? It had real effects because I was listening to it and I was feeding it. Every time I consumed a magazine, looking at a beautiful woman, going, she's beautiful. I look awful compared to her. Look how thin she is. I shouldn't eat any food. That's what my ego was doing with it, right? But your ego is everything you've been taught by everything you've ever experienced. We have to understand that the conditioned mind, which is a big part of the ego's power, is that you've been taught you're powerless, that your government rules the roost. You can't do anything. Well, if you have been taught that and you believe that thought, then you're going to act powerless. And then you're going to experience powerlessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how you're acting. If you have that belief, I'm powerless, then you think of how many interactions in a day or ideas you have or inspirations If you've been taught that you're powerless, and we teach our children to be powerless by forcing them to do things and disciplining them in certain ways and not allowing that, there's many things that all of us have experienced throughout our conditioning programs. We're not making anyone evil here. We're just saying we have been trained in a million things that are not true, in the sense it's the opposite of what Jesus teaches us, for example, right? But we are powerful creators, and it's our belief in the things that we've been taught that empowers the ego. So, for example, chocolate cake at 3:00 in the morning. I'm just going to plug my phone in here because I do not want to delete you by accident. Oh no, I've got lots of power. Hang on. I've done that many times, been on live streams and lost power. The reason someone gets up at 3:00 in the morning and has another piece of chocolate cake is because it works. When you're eating a piece of chocolate cake, your mind is occupied with the sweetness and the texture and the creaminess and the smell, and you're making a cup of tea to go with it. So for, let's say, 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, your mind is completely occupied with eating a piece of cake. In that 45 minutes, you are not suffering with your thoughts, right? You're not suffering with your thoughts. You're in love with the chocolate cake. And this is why people will go back time and time again to something that's physical, because it stops the thought process that is causing their suffering. Same with the gin and tonic on a Friday afternoon. I hate my job. I don't, but let's say I hate my job. I've had a terrible week. I'm all stressed out. I feel powerless. This is what I've been taught. I'm going to have a drink. And when you have that drink, the brain starts to get numbed. The suffering thoughts start to disappear. Man, that drink worked. Man, that piece of chocolate cake worked. That's the ego at work saying, have those things. Short-term gratification is going to bring you relief. It doesn't want you to actually do the long-term program of training your mind so that you don't suffer. So the ego is something we experience if we believe in it, I think. When, as course students, we stop listening to it through the training that we get and start doing other things that are more fulfilling and more loving, let's say, then the ego has less and less influence over us. But as a collective, the ego has a tremendous amount of influence over us because we are all programmed by the same systems, right? Get sick, go to the doctor. That's a program. Over the last few years, some of us have learned that going to the doctor is maybe not going to be that good for you. And so that program is changing. And so we're starting to do different things. When I first started channeling the first year with my guides and teachers who are called Ananda. And they said, you think you have a dozen programs to get rid of. You have thousands. You have thousands of programs. And those programs are conditioning programs. And that is one of the ways that the ego manifests. It's not spirit. It's not guidance that's coming from source or love. It's from a culture that has a very vested interest in you staying separated and having a lot of self-loathing. A lot of money is made from those things.
I think that leads us into probably the most essential part of the course, and the one that we began talking about earlier. The antidote to the ego is forgiveness, because the last thing the ego ever wants to do is forgive. It loses something that it considers valuable if it forgives.
Yeah. And there comes a point as a Course in Miracles student where you get really kind of pissed off at that, because you're like, it's all on me, right? It's me that's doing this to me, and it's me that has to change. And what about all these other stupid people out there? No, actually, they need to change. If they change, then I would be okay. It's a massive shift in consciousness. The course is not for everybody. The course didn't come to me until I think I was 44 when the course came to me. And as I said, I'd been reading spiritual books for 25 years, and I know spiritual people who won't do the course. It's a very challenging thing. Forgiveness is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because if you look at forgiveness from the way we're taught about it in our society, the idea is a bad person did something wrong. We shouldn't forgive them. They were bad. And if you do forgive them, there's almost like a weakness or something that's kind of laid on that idea of, forgiving someone. But when you actually understand the principle of separation, which is that it's perpetuated by guilt and judgment, then you understand that to actually heal on a meaningful level, you want to decrease separation, which is a separation from love and oneness. That's really what Jesus is talking about. When we come into separation, into the body, into this 3D experience that we're having, we truly seem to be separated from God. We can't hear God's voice. We are put in these vulnerable bodies, in these crazy families and weird societies. We truly feel separated from God. We aren't in actuality, but our experience feels that way. So when you practice forgiveness, you are going from the experience of separation. Every time you forgive and heal your mind through doing what Jesus teaches us to do, starting with less judgment, eventually going to forgive. When the course talks about forgiveness, it's really about looking at the world with forgiving eyes. So it's not just you did something wrong to me as a person and I have to forgive you. It's about not constantly judging, right? It could be even the weather. Oh, it's a shitty rainy day. Oh God, I hate rainy days. If you go into a rainy day with that attitude, you are going to suffer. You're going to have a less good day than if you tell the story, for example, of, wow, all the trees and plants are going to be so happy with all this rain. Even if you change a thought like that, that's a more forgiving thought. So in that moment, you're going to suffer less if you allow it to be a rainy day. And that applies to everything. It could be your own physical structure, it could be politics, it could be family, it could be your children leaving dishes around the house. It could be anything that you choose to use as your forgiveness practice, right? If your teenager leaves an endless pile of plates in their room, you can have the story, for example, they don't respect me, they're so self-indulgent, oh my God, they're awful to be around. Or you could use it as your forgiveness practice and go, wow, I remember being a teenager. My mum couldn't get me out of bed before 2:00 in the afternoon. And you could pick up those dishes peacefully without the hatred being projected onto your child. And you could pick it up peacefully and go, well, you know what? I do need to discuss this, but you're not going to come at that discussion from a place of hatred and judgment, right? So making your mind more forgiving about something like that, which I would say most parents have probably experienced, you're going to have the conversation you have with your teenager is going to be very different if you've had the thought, wow, I remember being a teenager. My room looked like it had been ransacked every day. Rather than, oh my God, they don't respect me. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm going to kick them out. Like, imagine the different conversation you're going to have if your mind's doing the hatred or your mind's doing the, oh wow, yeah, I remember being a teenager. Everything my parent did annoyed me. You're going to come at it completely differently. So that's the idea of forgiveness, right? That you're training of your mind into being less attacking and less judgmental is going to have real life effects in the relationships with the people that you have. And this is the thing that I have seen is that, yeah, my mind was a war zone when I picked up the course, and it was worst time of my life. A lot of personal things were happening that were devastating to me, but they were created by me, sad to say.
Um, it struck me as you were talking that when you were talking about family dynamics, We can literally do that with politics. We can heal our division,
Hmm.
um, just upgrading our story a little bit. That I
Yep.
don't need to make you wrong. Um, I don't need to make myself right. I can still believe what I believe, but my belief isn't going to be any more believable by making you wrong, or causing hurt feelings, or um, if we approached all of our division from family to politics, just with that, as the course says, that little willingness,
Hmm.
what a difference in the world. That maybe we really would have that happier dream.
Yeah, and I think again, it sounds simple, but when you realize that this entire separation experience is driven by making others guilty and separation, you are really asking that's a big ask, right? To even um, for people to even entertain the idea that their story about politics right now, and all of the angst it's causing and all of the vitriol that it's causing is not coming from the outside, but is coming from their story about what's happening. That's actually, I think, a very evolved concept. And it's only when you've reached a point of becoming teachable that those kinds of concepts, of course, anyone who's listening to this conversation has come to that point. They're listening, they're on a spirit, they've got a spiritual practice, otherwise they wouldn't be listening. They'd be like, what the heck are these two people talking about? So anyone who's listening here has come to that place. But I would say to anyone who's listening, who's really being triggered right now by what's going on in the world, is what is your story about this? This shouldn't be happening. Oh my God, the world is going to fall apart. We can't allow things like this. This is evil. Whatever, whichever, and whatever side you're on, right? Um, but if you can go, actually, I don't know what's the consequences of this is going to be. I don't know. If you think about the threat of war, for example, I don't think there's ever been a time in my life when there has not been saber rattling by governments, whether it's there's been a war in the Middle East ever since I was a child, and that's a long time ago. And it was on the news, and people were being killed. It's been going on for a long, long time, and Russia, and it's just been a constant. If you actually look at history, or your own experience of this world, um, if you get upset every time there's a political conflict, you're going to be upset every single day. And if that's not dawned on you yet, it's time. It's time for it to dawn on you that if you believe in all of the political shenanigans that are going on all of the time and have always gone on all of the time, the Vietnam War, all everything, it's nonstop. That's because it's the ego's playground. And if you want to be in the battleground, the course talks about getting above the battleground. That's what we have to do as course students and teachers. We have to stop being in the battleground, which is what's going on right now. Let's say on the streets of Minnesota right now, those people are in the battleground, right? They're believing in that they're right, whichever side is right. They're believing that if they attack the other side, then it's going to be good for them. They're going to get what they want. This is the ego in a nutshell. And if you're involved in that mentally, then you're in the battleground too, and you're going to not have any peace. And the course is about teaching you how to get above the battleground. And we're all in the battleground at times. And that's the way we know we're in the battleground, is because we start to feel not very good. And we start to have hateful thoughts, and we start to judge people. And I get in the battleground sometimes, but because of the degree to which I have practiced the course, not because I'm some amazing person. The reason I've practiced the course so hard is because I had such a suffering mind. I had to work really, really hard to stop suffering. And once you catch on to the idea that you can stop suffering, you stop suffering. You won't let yourself suffer because you know it's optional. And this is the thing that I don't think most people really grasp, is that the course makes suffering optional. You don't have to suffer. And if you want to be in the battleground, that's your choice. You have free will. But if you're constantly upset and afraid and hating people, then you are not in a frequency of love. You're not in a frequency where creativity and abundance and health and connection to your guides and teachers can come in. Your guides and teachers don't want to come down to a frequency of hatred. They don't want to come down into the battleground, and they won't come down there. And you will feel alone down there. But as you practice forgiveness and non-judgment and getting yourself above the battleground, not getting involved in every fight, then, and I think that that's what happened to me, is that I did the course long enough and saw that it was my choice whether I suffered or not. And in the end, that final forgiveness practice that I had to do, I decided that I wanted absolute peace of mind. That was my goal. And I'd been given the tools because I'd studied the course. I was able to achieve a frequency where then my guides and teachers could make contact. And that was what the Kundalini awakening was. It was the contact. I brought myself up out of the pit, above the battleground, and they were like, okay, we can make full contact now with this person. This person is now of a frequency that is usable. And I think that's what it was. I became usable to spirit because they could start channeling the books. They could start teaching me. They could start upgrading my physical body, which is what the Kundalini experience was. But it was because I had chugged up through all of those ladders up to a point. And I didn't do it because I was super spiritual. I did it because I'd figured out that I didn't want to suffer. And so I was willing to do those forgiveness prayers because I didn't want to suffer. And I think that's really the most important thing for anyone who's listening, is wherever you're suffering, whether it's financially, health-wise, you're being driven mad by the politics of today, that's suffering, and it's your choice. You don't have to do it.
Speaking of suffering, and speaking of Kundalini, that's not an experience that you recommend that we seek.
Well, I've known, there's a book I read when I first had the Kundalini awakening, and it was called Spiritual Emergency. I can't remember the name of the author. And it was about Westerners accidentally triggering Kundalini awakenings. And it causes a lot of difficulty in Westerners because we do not have a society or a culture that supports it or understands it or has any philosophy about it whatsoever. If you have a Kundalini awakening and you're living in India, you're going to have a completely different experience because the entire culture and religion understands what it is and will support you through it and will in fact feed you. If you have a Kundalini awakening in a place like India, you're going to be supported by people who understand what it is and what's happening, that it's a gift, it's a spiritual gift. But if you're in a Western society, you may very well end up in a psych ward. I can tell you, I can guarantee that if I had gone to a psychiatrist when I was going through that Kundalini experience, they would have committed me. Absolutely, I have no doubt. And when I had the first energetic experience, which lasted about 90 minutes, the activation began, I looked like I was having a seizure. I was in ecstasy. My entire mind and body was in absolute ecstasy, but I looked like I was having a fit. So, but it was because of my spiritual education, 25 years of reading spiritual books. And in that year before my awakening, I was put in a rental situation, and the library in the rental situation was all about Tantra and Kundalini, subjects I'd never studied. But I think I was put into that apartment so that I could read all those books because this was what was going to happen to me. So I had a year of studying books on Kundalini awakenings and tantric practices. So when it started, I knew exactly what it was. And so I surrendered to it completely. I think a lot of people in the West, Jesus calls them speed bumps. And that's your resentments and fears and that kind of thing. If you haven't worked through a lot of those things, when the energy of a Kundalini hits you, it hits those things like speed bumps, just like a car. If you're going fast and the Kundalini energy is fast, when it hits a resentment or a fear, it can cause a lot of problems in the body, in the nervous system, in the physical body. So in that book, Spiritual Emergency, a lot of Westerners who accidentally trigger Kundalini awakenings can have terrible physical consequences, like getting extremely hot, being unable to work, nervousness, weakness, all kinds of things. The reason I just caution people against seeking a Kundalini is that you actually don't know what you're asking for. When I had that Kundalini awakening, I was phoning ashrams in all over the place because I did not know how I was going to function. I couldn't work. I didn't know how I was going to live with this tremendous amount of energy coursing through my body all the time. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't know anybody at the time who understood what it was. I started to explain what was happening to people. People think you're crazy. I was lucky. I was well educated, and I'd been doing the course for 12 years. So I understood, and I'd studied for a year as a bioenergy healer. So I understood the chakras and I understood how energy works. So I had been very well educated by spirit when that Kundalini awakening happened. So I would say, if you're meant to have a Kundalini awakening, do the course. Do the course, because I wasn't doing yoga classes all the time. I wasn't eating clean all the time. All of the things that we get prescribed to do to have a spiritual awakening, I wasn't doing. The only thing I was doing was intense prayer and forgiveness practice. That's all I was doing.
Did that practice of forgiveness help guide you through the that's what led you to that point, but did it also help see you through the actuality of the experience?
No, not really, because it was really the spiritual education that I'd had that allowed me to surrender to the Kundalini experience. So because I knew what was happening, sort of, I mean, the first 3.5 weeks, Ananda, my guides, hadn't made contact yet. I just knew that I was having a Kundalini awakening, and I kind of understood what the consequences of that was to some degree. I didn't know what they were actually going to be for me specifically in terms of the gifts that come with a Kundalini awakening. But you have to understand, I was in ecstasy for 3.5 weeks. It's really not a horrible experience. It wasn't a horrible experience at all. And 3.5, I contacted a channeler here where I live now, and I told her what was happening. And she said, look, I'm having an automatic writing workshop this weekend. I was about 3 weeks into this. I knew spirit was making contact with me. I just didn't really know what was going to happen. And she said, I'm having an automatic writing workshop this weekend. Why don't you come? And I said, I don't have any money. She said, that's okay. Just come. And so I came, and that was when my guides and teachers made contact with me through the automatic writing, which is a common way for guides and teachers to connect with people. But my forgiveness practice, I think, and this is what the course is very clear about, I have an ongoing forgiveness practice. My mind still wants to judge things. I'm amazed how quickly it can judge, but I've learned to deal with it so quickly because of the course training that it never really gets any traction with me anymore, unless it's a particularly deeply entrenched belief that I have, which happens. So forgiveness was not really, I really wasn't judging it negatively at all, the whole Kundalini thing. I knew what it was. I knew what was happening on a certain level. And at this retreat, the automatic writing retreat, my guides and teachers came through very quickly and told me what was happening. They said, we are Ananda, we're your guides and teachers. We are going to write books through you, and this is your life's purpose now. That was their first contact. That's what they told me at first. So I wasn't surprised by that because of just what I'd gone through in my life. And I surrendered to it completely. Again, 12 years of doing the course, you are used to surrendering. The course is constantly asking you to surrender, right? To stop judging, to allow. And so 12 years of practice of this was, I think, the prerequisite to having this channeling opportunity in a way. When I channel, I just surrender. That's all I do. So I've been doing it for a long time. I've been surrendering for a long time.
Can you tell us a bit about your channeling for those who might be here who don't know or have not followed your channel? That you are. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I had the 3.5 weeks of ecstasy. I did the writing workshop, and the first thing I wrote was Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. So I was meditating, and we had a pen and a candle, and you just focused meditating. It started to write, it looked like scribbles at first, like, fake handwriting, like when you're a kid. And then this word showed up, Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. And that's all I wrote for pages and 2 or 3 pages. I just wrote Ananda. So at the end of that, everyone, because that was the beginning of the channeling, really, was the Ananda, right? We gathered around, and I said, "What does Ananda mean?" And I knew it was like Yogananda. All of the teachers from the East have Ananda in their name, right? And someone said, "Oh, that was Buddha's favorite student was Ananda." So I was like, "Okay," didn't really, And then it came to light that it means bliss. Ananda is a state of consciousness that is bliss. And so, okay, I've been in bliss for 3.5 weeks. This makes sense that whoever's coming through is using that word. And then that night, I had the feeling someone wants to say something. Don't ask me how I know that. I had the feeling someone wants to say something. So everyone went to bed. And I sat at the kitchen counter and I started automatic writing again. And the writing came through. We are Ananda. We are your guides and teachers. You were a goat herder in Jesus' time. And you would follow him with your goats, and you would sit around the fire at night, and he would teach you. I did not know when they first made contact that I would be channeling him a year later. They said that if I'd found out, then I wouldn't have done it. It would have been too much. So the first year of channeling with Ananda was in preparation for me to channel Jesus, which is understandable, right? Even when he came through, I wasn't really happy about it. But that's how they introduced the idea of my relationship with him, that I had been alive in his incarnation and had followed him. And they said that when you read the course, you recognized his teachings because I had been a student of his in another incarnation. So what happened was the channeling started with automatic writing. Then they started typing on my laptop. And about 3 months in, they said, "We're going to prepare you to speak for us." Now, during that 3 months of summer, so I think they came through June 21st, 2012. Once they made contact and once I realized that I was channeling, I was completely open to it, very excited about it. I had no fear, no resistance. Again, I've been doing the course for 12 years, so I know my frequency is high. I know that I have let go of so many hateful aspects of myself. So I surrendered to it completely. There was no resistance, no fear, nothing. So every day I would lay down on my bed in the apartment that I was in when they came through, and I would give them permission. And this is what they said to me. They said, "We are reintegrating the matrix of your body, and we're reconnecting everything that's been disconnected. Do you give us permission to continue?" So that's a very interesting way of wording it, I think. We're reintegrating the matrix of your body and we're reconnecting everything that's been disconnected. And so for an hour every day at lunchtime, I would lay down on the bed and they would do energy work on me, upgrading, doing whatever this reintegration of matrix was. So my hands would be doing all kinds of energy work. I wasn't moving them. Spirit was guiding that. And so for 3 months, I did an hour a day of them upgrading my body, whatever this reintegration thing was. And then in October, they said, we're going to prepare you to speak for us. And so one day I laid down for these energy sessions at lunchtime, and the throat chakra was super energized, and they began to speak. And the first thing they gave a lecture on unconditional love was the first thing they did. And so I would practice. Once they started to speak, and this was Ananda. Now, Ananda is a group consciousness of different we would say ascended master teachers, extraterrestrials, all kinds of different beings. And they say their purpose is to help us in our ascension process. But they're my guides and teachers personally. Then I was still in a very high state of oneness all of the time. I've never claimed to be enlightened, but this experience of them, we'll say, occupying my consciousness, I would go out for a walk and I would be one with the flowers, and I would be one with the waves and one with the wind. I was having these incredible oneness experiences. And I would walk along the beach and they would just talk and talk and talk, and they would channel about the wind and light and physics and all kinds of things. As soon as they had started typing, they started typing the first book, which is called Making Love to God, which is about sexuality and sexual energy. And I think I'm up to eight books now. And they said the reason that they tackled that book first was they said it's the most powerful energy we have to deal with as humans, and it's the most distorted on our planet. So Making Love to God is the first book. I was not happy about the subject matter. I was like, can't you just pick an easier subject than sexuality? Little did I know that the next few books would be more difficult. But so the first book was about sexuality and sexual energy. And I'll just talk about the second book, because that's pivotal in the story of channeling Jesus. The second book is called Great Minds Speak to You. And I channeled 20 dead celebrities. You would know most of them. And that book came through in 1 month. So at 5 o'clock every morning, I would get up and I would channel. I didn't know who I was going to be channeling. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink here. And very famous people, Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe. It's a very interesting book. And they channeled about their life and their incarnation and what they wanted us to know about their life and incarnation and what they learned. So very interesting to listen to these people. At about they said there would be 20 channels. And about number 15, I started saying to myself, I wonder who's number 20 is going to be, because these were such famous people. So my voice would change. When I channeled Margaret Thatcher, I sounded just like her. At number 15, I was like, I wonder who number 20 is going to be. Is it going to be Elvis or Gandhi or someone? And then I just started saying, just don't be Jesus. So for the last 5 people, I just kept saying, just don't be Jesus. So obviously something in me kind of figured out that that's who it would be. And sure enough, number 20 was Jesus. And he came through and he said Jesus-y things like praying for your enemies and about teaching about forgiveness. And at the end of it, I thought, okay, well, that's over. That's awesome. Okay, that wasn't that bad. And then the next morning he came through again and he said, I want you to write my autobiography for me. But first you have to read the New Testament. And that was how he came through and how he introduced himself. And I was not happy about this whole prospect of channeling Jesus. As you can imagine, it's kind of a big psychological journey to open up to doing this. But my suicide attempt when I was a young woman he said, I want you to think about this. I want you to take a day to think about this before you say yes or no. So he's saying this. So I'm channeling him saying this. I'm listening to the recording of what he's saying, although I sit in the background, I can hear what he's saying. And I thought about it for a couple of hours and I thought, you know what? I'm lucky to be alive. I never wanted a boring life anyway. It was always my biggest fear that I would have a boring life. It really has been my whole life. I've always wanted to have an interesting life, and I've tried to make sure I have an interesting life. And boy, did this make it interesting. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so I had to read the New Testament first. And he said the reason I had to read the New Testament, which I hadn't read, maybe I read it when I was younger. I don't think so. I'd probably read passages here and there. And he said, it's because I want you to know what people believe. You have to understand what people believe about me. But also you need a structure upon which I can hang the story I'm going to tell you. So he was going to tell me the story of his birth and his life. And so he wanted to he said that it's like coat hooks. He said, you have to be able to hang the story on something. So that's what I did. I read the New Testament, and in 40 channeling sessions, he channeled the book called Jesus, My Autobiography, which is now in 10 languages around the world. It's making its way around the world. It's even in Chinese. It's gone to China.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I've had nothing to do with the translations. Spirit has been working with people around the world to inspire them to translate the book and publish it. So that's how it started. And I didn't tell anyone what was happening for a while.
I was going to ask you that. Was there any fear in the reception that you might get to make an announcement, I'm channeling Jesus?
Oh, yeah. But I've always had a sort of anti-establishment aspect to myself ever since I was a little girl. You know, I got thrown out of tap dancing when I was 4 for non-compliance. I got thrown out of brownies for non-compliance. You know, I got thrown out of French in high school for non-compliance. So there's always been a very rebellious part of me. So I think my personality is the perfect personality for this job, but I did have a lot of reservations, and I really didn't come out of the closet for about a year. Yeah. And I don't and when I first started telling people, I would be very cautious of who I would tell. I would tell trusted friends. I would tell people who I knew believed in Jesus, or sometimes it wouldn't be the people who believed in Jesus, because they would they'd be like, you can't channel him. If they were traditionally religious, they're like, you can't channel Jesus. But mostly it would be people who believed in channeling and people who were course students. But what would happen is people would listen to the channelings and they would be blown away. They would be astonished at the information, and they would know that it wasn't me. Very clearly, it's not me. And if you go to YouTube and you listen to the videos, and it's good to go to the early videos too, you know, when I was first in 2013, 2014, some fabulous lectures that he gives. Is just like, well, I don't know if this is Jesus or not, but whoever this is telling some wonderful things, you know. And that's always what's kept me going, is just the quality of the information.
The information tied in with the lessons of the course is brilliant.
Yeah.
And it has helped quite a few people. This is what has earned so much praise from Kat. And she was like, you really, really have to listen to the tie-in, the reading the lesson, and then listening to Jesus' commentary on that lesson. Because anyone who might be struggling, and we have some people in the chat now I know who has just started with the new year, doing the course for the very first time, and that the Jesus commentary really helps. You can do the workbook on your own, as you did, as I did. But now you have the option. You can do the workbook with Jesus. Yeah. What a pretty amazing opportunity.
It's a fabulous opportunity. Who wouldn't want your spiritual teacher to be Jesus? I mean, come on. We do all these classes and workshops and things, you know, and it's free. You can hang out with him. And as soon as you start doing the course, he's hanging out with you. The only thing he's up against is your mind. That's all he's up against, right? Is your mind and the programming of our society. So if you can surrender to the lessons and really accept that he is walking with you, once you start doing, I think he's walking with all of us all the time. But once you start really opening to the course and asking him and working with him as your teacher and guide, then he will really start accelerating your ascension process or your awakening process or your enlightenment process, whatever you want to call it. All I know is that the course saved my life. It transformed my life from a very troublesome life to a very peaceful life. It's given me an amazing purpose to my life and the ability to choose what I want to do when I want to do it, which is amazing. I was stuck doing jobs I hated and in difficult relationships and fractured family and all of that stuff. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect and my life isn't perfect. But let me tell you, it's 95% better than it was. And that's why I do this work. And that's why I have these conversations, is to really encourage someone, especially if you're on this chat here and you've been doing the course for 18 days or whatever the date is, 22 days. I never know what day is. Just trust in the process, and that the millions and millions of people who have done the course around the planet, if somebody has actually done the course, they will say it changed my life, and I do it, just do it. But you do have to go through a process of just like someone getting a personal trainer. You have to do the sit-ups you don't want to do, and you have to do the walking you don't want to do, and you have to do the mind training that you don't necessarily want to do. But trust me, propaganda in this day and age is the weapon of choice for governments and for the world, let's say. Propaganda is what we are up against. And I think that this is why the course was brought through at this time, is if you are in charge of your mind, propaganda won't work on you. If you're not in charge of your mind, then propaganda will work on you. And propaganda is a big weapon right now through all of the media systems that we've got. The constant messaging, the constant videos about what they want you to hate next. You can see it. There'll be the Ukrainian flag, and then there'll be the black square, and then there'll be it's just a constant wave of information, and you can see it washing over entire populations. And that is because it's propaganda, and you will be blown like a flag in the wind if you are not in charge of your own mind. And that is the biggest gift you can give yourself, is to start to break free from the system that's trained us into fear and separation. It's trained us because we've wanted it on some level. That's why we're here. And I think that to train your mind into peace is an amazing gift you can give yourself and your body and your family and your community. And that's what you're doing. You're doing the most powerful thing that you can do to change your experience here, which is what we call the world, right? What do we call the world? The experience we're having in the world. You're having a particular experience in the world because of your perception and your beliefs. And if you can change those, then you will have a new experience. And that's what the lessons are. They're designed to bring you a new experience and to connect you with your guides and teachers. And I can tell you unequivocally, when you connect with your guides and teachers, it's fabulous. It's just fabulous. It's really worth the discipline, and it's really worth the effort. And let me tell you, your life will be a lot easier than if the ego is in control. And that's really the choice you're making when you choose A Course in Miracles. You're saying, I would rather have love in control than the ego, which is separation and fear. It's very logical. Choose love and your life will be better.
This is playing out. Your words are playing out in my life right now for me. So much so that those blocks of fear of can someone decide late in life, not too late, but later in life, 60 years old, can you decide to do something completely different? Can you, for me, start a YouTube channel talk about the things that I love,
Yep.
have wonderful conversations, and rely solely um, on this as my, this is basically how I'm earning my income now.
Hmm.
Um, I've completely given myself to just doing this with
Yep.
all of the love that I have in my heart, with all the love that I can receive, with
Hmm.
all of the love that I get from great guests like you. Um, and it takes a certain level of trust and stepping up and saying, I'm willing. You know, I love that great line in the course. If you knew who walked beside you at all times, fear would be
Yep.
impossible. And more, I'm feeling that. And when I talk to you, I just get that feeling that um, I'm not alone. That indeed, mighty companions are walking with all of us.
Yep.
Now,
Well, I started channeling when I was 54. And for the first 5 years, I just channeled the books. So I did 6 books in 5 years. And I started doing my first video was just a text scrolling because I had just finished a 2-year graphic design program where Spirit had put me in this program. Was at one point I was in this program. I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? I'm in a basement with all these 21-year-olds with their computers. I was a complete a Luddite, but I had to learn how to use a computer. So in that 2 years before I channeled, I did typography, which I used for my book designs. I did Photoshop. I did social media marketing. The day I had that Kundalini awakening and I started to channel, I realized that I had just learned everything I needed to do to run a YouTube channel.
well,
I didn't decide that. I found myself in this program going, why I hate computers. Why am I doing a computer course? The logical reason was that I was an artist at the time, and I thought, you know what, I've got to get literate on. I've got to learn to design websites for my art. So that was the logical mind of Tina. But the synchronicities that got me into that program were incredible. I was the oldest person in the school. So I was older than the principal. I was older than all the teachers. All my classmates were 21 years old. And I learned in 2 years what I needed to do to be able to manage an online business. And I started doing videos straight away. And I don't know how many videos are online, 700, 800 or whatever. And that's my free work. I do paid work as well, but that's my pro bono stuff is the free videos. And you don't have to spend a penny. You've got 365 of the Course in Miracles videos that I've done. 40 Days and 40 Nights is a fabulous introductory training program. That's on my channel as well. And of course, I do current event videos, and I did videos during COVID, and so you've got everything that you could need for free on my channel. And that having said, I don't feel guilty then when I do charge for certain things. I do have an
sure.
online community that's a subscription community. And on that community, all of my videos are there. I think I have 11 or 1,200 videos. And there's a feed like Facebook where people channel and we talk about the course. And I do retreats. I do international retreats. So my website, channelingjesus.com, has information about those things, but you don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. And I was very conscious about that because I was broke my whole life. I was an artist, I was a working artist, and I never had any money. I could never do a retreat. I could never do anything like that. And so I'm very conscious about providing free work for people. And these course lessons and 40 Days and 40 Nights are fabulous places to go if you're just beginning.
You, I want to piggyback on that because if anyone has not spent time on your YouTube channel, uh, Tina gives away an overwhelmingly amount of stuff for free. That everything you need to be a successful course student is on your YouTube page, from day 1 to day 365, and again, uh, commentary from Jesus guiding you. And I think the longest lesson is number one. I think it's 17 minutes because you have the introduction
Hmm.
and then you do the lesson. But other than that, most of them, I believe, are under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's hand in hand with having the workbook in your hand, having Tina and having Jesus guide you through the whole process. It's a fail safe. You cannot fail when you start these lessons. The only way you can really sort of fail is if you, and it's not even a failure, it's just timing yourself out for when you pick it back up again. And you will eventually.
And I didn't fully surrender to the course until I was in it about 6 years. I thought I had, but I hadn't. So in that first 6 years, I was very dedicated. I would dedicate my Sundays to only reading the course. I said, "This is my church," and I wouldn't. At the time, I didn't have a computer or anything, or phones or anything like that. So I would just read the course every Sunday, all day long, contemplate it, practice it. Um, but in that first 6 years, some of my big triggers came up and some of my big idols came up. So I had a challenging time in that first 6 years. You aren't going to you are actually going to encounter some of the darker aspects of your ego in those early days. And at around year 6, I went off on some random trip chasing some guy that I was obsessed with at the time. And I came back to this place where I live now, and I was living in a house with three crazy women. So I was kind of homeless. They gave me a room in their house. I didn't have a job. I had no money, and I had really put myself through the ringer chasing this idol, of course, that this was this special relationship. And I had a dark night of the soul one night, and I was crying and praying, and I was crying and praying, and I was alone in this room with these crazy women. And then, of course, at one point, I realized there were four crazy women. I was one of them. Um, but that night, I was crying and praying and crying and praying, and I was just like begging Jesus to help me because I had just gone on this crazy excursion to Mexico with this guy. I'd come back with no money, no job, literally $5 to my name. And this is 6 years into the course. You wouldn't think I'd be doing this, but I had dug myself into a pretty big hole with my idols. And I was laying on the bed, I'd been crying and praying for hours, and I had my eyes closed, and I was lifted out of my body. My consciousness was lifted out of my body, and I feel like I was held about 3 feet above the bed, I'm guessing. And I was held in that oneness that people who have near death experiences talk about, this completely overwhelming love, forgiveness, understanding, just this incredible, it's nothing like anything we experience here. It really is an incredible oneness that is God. And I say I was held in the arms of God for about 45 minutes. And after about, I'm guessing the time, I don't know. After about 45 minutes, I said, "You need to put me down now. I'm exhausted. I need to go to sleep." And I was gently laid back into my body, and I went to sleep. And the next morning I got up, and the first thing I said, "Jesus, I will do anything that you ask me to do. I will accept any person, place, thing, job, assignment," because I'd had this experience of oneness. I knew what the course was talking about. I'd never had this experience before. And so my total surrender to the course came 6 years in after that experience. Very difficult time in my life, but that was the moment that I was all in the course.
Um, Beautiful. The whole thing, that whole experience that you described, uh, beautiful. And it was similar with me. It took me quite a while from first picking up the course um, to, and I shared a little bit of that with you backstage when we were talking. But none of it is wasted. Even a little bit of diving in
Yep.
is going to plant these seeds that are going to bear fruit in our lives. And for me, the fruit is the actual practice. Everything else was a bonus. The the
Yep.
big the big thing that happened was the course gave me the gift of the course. Um, I always
Yeah,
go back.
you really do fall in love with it. You
You know,
really do fall in love with it. Yeah.
and the proof of that is I'm talking to you who has been 25 years now. Did you say?
2001 was when I started the course. Yeah.
Okay, so
25 years.
25
Yeah.
years, and your enthusiasm 25 years later, the work that you do, how much you're giving away for free, the fact that you, as you told me backstage, I love talking about this.
Oh,
Um,
it's my favorite thing. I know there's someone on here right now who was not going to carry on with the course. They're like, this is stupid. I don't understand this. Why am I looking at things saying they don't exist? Of course they exist. Why is it saying things don't mean anything? Of course they mean things. But just, the possibility that listening to this conversation will change one mind. And if you think about it, one mind changed. Think of an extremely influential person in the world. What can one person do? One person is a Gandhi. One person is, an author who writes amazing books. One person can change millions of minds. And for the person listening, that may be you. You just don't know it yet. Trust me, when I first started the course, if they had told me that I was going to be channeling Jesus all over the world, I think I would have been too scared to do it. They don't. Your guides don't tell you what your assignment is because you're not ready. You're not ready yet. You're not ready to know yet. But for those of you that are doing the course, those of you that are studying, the day before my Kundalini awakening, I didn't know it was going to happen. I was just a course student doing my work, doing my forgiveness work. And my world changed one day because of the course, and it has brought me nothing but joy. I mean, yes, there have been hurdles to get over, writing a book about sex. Seriously, I didn't want to do that. Writing a book about Jesus, seriously, I didn't want to do that either. um, but damn, they're good books. I would channel them and then I'd read them and I think, God, this is the best book ever. And the Jesus book, it often changes lives. The first time someone reads it, it literally changes their life. And on a channeling the other day, Jesus said, this is the time to read those books because they were brought through for this time. So the books go into these subjects in depth. So we've got sex and sexuality. Who doesn't have issues around that? We all need to read that book. The second book is Great Minds Speak to You. Who doesn't want to hear what Marilyn has to say about her life? Who doesn't want to hear what the Kennedys have to say about their lives? Like, so interesting. Third book is Jesus' autobiography. Who doesn't want to find out what the truth is there? Fourth book is about love. Who doesn't have issues with that? What the heck is it anyway? How do we get it? Like, these are very, very in-depth books about these subjects and very pertinent to these times and pertinent to your evolution. And of course, they're only, I don't know, $20 a piece or whatever. My publisher is Light Technology Publishing in Arizona. It's awesome if you buy the books from them. They don't lose money to Amazon, but they're all on Amazon, easy to find. And the Jesus book is all over the world in all of these languages, which is a miracle. And I had nothing to do with that. That's Jesus doing. So it's pretty fabulous. But I was just like you. I was a Course in Miracles student. I was struggling through it, not understanding it. What the heck is this text? I don't understand a word of it. In the end, I read the text 25 times. I would read it all the time. And I don't read the Course as much now because Jesus channels through me. So, he teaches the Course every time I channel. So that's fabulous.
the directive that I was given was not everyone's going to watch a. We're almost 2 hours. I apologize
Oh,
because I promised you like an hour, 90 minutes, and here we are,
okay.
almost 2 hours. Not everyone's going to watch or rewatch
No.
a 2 hour live stream,
No.
but I was Lisa Natoli, who's a course teacher as well, asked me after our conversation if I could make some shorts and
Mm-hmm.
some long form videos for it.
Go for it.
And Well, I said no
Oh,
because I don't know how.
oh, well, there you go.
And
There's something to learn here.
well, the thing is, I had an intuitive voice that sounded amazingly like a friend of mine, who said, as soon as I said no, the question was, "Do you not know how, or have you never tried?" And I never tried. So I went to do it, and no problem, and I've been doing it. Here's
Yep.
the problem I'm going to be faced with you: finding a 3-minute clip of a continuous stream of love is going to be all but impossible.
Well, you know
Um,
what? I'm faced with the same thing because I've just started doing clips too. Because this is where people are really going now, is these short reels, right? And I decided that I was just going to clip a 2-minute clip and not worry about what it was, because you know what? It's all good. If I'm channeling Jesus, 2 minutes of whatever he says is fabulous. And if it doesn't make sense, if it's not a cohesive clip, maybe people are going to go, well, what were they talking about? I need to go, and give them
right.
the information to go find it, because I think that's what the gift of these short reels is when people are doom scrolling. These clips are going to start showing up in their doom scrolling, and this is exactly why we should do clips, because we know that doom scrolling is depressing and disillusioning. Let's throw these 2-minute clips of some random sentences, and people, if they're ready for that information, they'll go, who is this? What are they talking about? And I think we should just not worry about it.
Thank you for that. Lisa told me that I only accepted half of my assignment, just doing interviews, just talking with guests. She said, again, not everyone's going to watch that whole live stream, but someone who is on the verge of picking up a drink again after 20 years of sobriety,
Yep.
someone who is convinced that they're alone,
Yep.
someone who, uh, for whatever reason, is at the lowest point of their life, is going to find a 3-minute clip
Hmm.
of Tina saying
Yep.
exactly what they need to hear. It's going
Yep.
to, algorithms are going to give them that gift,
Yep.
and it's going to make all the difference in the world. And as you said, put it out there and let the Holy Spirit take charge from that point on.
They've said, from day one, they said marketing is not your job. That's our job. So they just said, do what you're inspired to do. And that's what I've done. I haven't, the fact that these books are in 10 languages, I had nothing to do with that, but I wrote the book. That was what I was inspired to do. I was inspired to channel. I was inspired to edit the book. I was inspired to find a publisher. And I just did not take on the translation thing at all. And they just said, don't worry about it. We will do that. So this is part of our ego, right? Is like, you have to come up with it all. No, you don't have to figure it all out. You do what you're inspired to do. So you had the idea, I should do clips, but I don't know how. But you had the inspiration, right? The conditioning program was, oh, I don't know how, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, let's do it. So I did the same thing. I only did my first clip, I think, 3 days ago. So I literally am in the same place you are. And I couldn't figure out how to get the clip. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put up whatever and trust that someone, because we don't know who's going to be watching. We
Right.
don't know who's going to need the thing. We assume that we have to put in a cohesive clip, but there are going to be a million people who potentially could. We don't know which is going to be the right one. So that's really where we hand it over, right? We just say, Jesus, Holy Spirit, guide me. If you want me to do clips, I'll start doing clips, and just pick whatever.
The funny thing was, when I made my first clip and I was so happy and I looked at it and it came out beautiful, and I thought, how did I do that? I I lucked into it, and I had no idea how to do it again.
Well, if you go on YouTube, underneath, where it has like, share,
Mhm.
it has clip now. There's actually a function on YouTube. You can just do it right on YouTube.
Um, I have figured it out, and it has gotten easier, and I'm doing several a day. I'm really looking forward to diving into our conversation, and it's I'm convinced. I'm not convinced. I have a certainty that it really is going to find the
Yep.
right people,
Yep.
and I will send you the conversation, um,
Awesome.
if you like. So Tina, we made it. We made it to 2 hours.
Awesome. See, it didn't even, I was surprised when you said 2 hours. It doesn't feel like 2 hours.
It does not feel like 2 hours, and thank you for that. Um, we're talking about not always knowing how we touch people, but I want you to know for certain the difference that you've made for me in this conversation. Um, the difference that I know. Uh, Kat had said that you have answered her questions over and over and over again in this conversation. Um,
Awesome.
that I didn't get a chance to read. There was some questions I didn't get a chance to read, but I was scanning the chat, and overall, what people were saying was, "Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina." And I want to
Pleasure.
piggyback on that and say, "Thank you, Tina."
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being asked, and I love talking about the course. It will change your life. For those of you that are new at it, keep going. And Jesus is your teacher. What a wonderful experience to have. And yeah, dive into my channel. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos, and they're all there to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day,
Okay,
guys. I will see you all later. Take care.
okay. Bye bye.